So what is arguably the toughest place to be on the court in pickleball? The area where most would recommend that you do not stand because it's a losing proposition. I'd argue it's the transition zone, and I think many would agree. And what is arguably the toughest shot to hit in pickleball? The shot that takes the most skill that only the most advanced of players really seem to have mastered. I'd argue it's the reset shot, and I think many would agree with that also. So it would stand to reason then that hitting a reset shot from the transition zone is arguably one of the toughest things to do on the pickleball court. I think few would argue with that. Should you stand in the transition zone and play the entire game from there, thinking that's going to work well? Absolutely not, despite what some bangers may tell you. In case you don't know, bangers are those players that do typically stand somewhere in the transition zone and basically just bang away, hitting driving ground strokes as hard as they can to the other side repetitively. If all four players are bangers, then each point will look something like this. This can work up to a point if your team has at least a bit more control when doing this than the other team, if they're doing the same thing. But once you face a more skilled team that can hit drops and dinks and resets, just like the shot we're talking about in today's video, then bangers are going to be on the losing end of most points. If you struggle with bangers, then working your reset is just what the doctor ordered for you to be able to take them down, so this video is perfect for you. You're going to need to start viewing the transition zone as the area that you pass through on your way to the net. The transition zone is an area that you're going to have to contend with on virtually every point, because unless you're the returner's partner on a particular point, you're starting the point from back at the baseline, so you will have to navigate the transition zone in order to get to the most desirable area of the court, which is up at the net. And if you don't know that you should be trying to get to the net on every point, then now you do. You can do the most amount of damage to your opponents from up there, and the smallest amount of your own side of the court is exposed. It's a win-win for you. So although you don't want to be there that long, you must learn to successfully navigate the transition zone. Shots from there are so tough because you have to decide whether or not to volley it or half volley it, decide how much to push it or not to push it at all and just hold your paddle there and more or less block it. It may come right at your feet, or you may have to move and stretch somewhat, and you're pretty much hitting it from a tough body position a lot of the time. You're receiving a medium or fast-paced shot and taking all the pace off of it and attempting to drop it on a dime in the kitchen. Navigating this area of the court is tough because of the skills required to do it successfully. For all these reasons and more, the transition zone is possibly the most difficult place from which to play on the pickleball court. Yet, as just mentioned, in order to get up to the net, you must successfully make it through the tricky transition zone because you can't start from up at the non-volley zone line unless you're the returner's partner. Since you will have to navigate this area, and you will find yourself in it often when playing competitive games, despite not really wanting to be there and not wanting to stand there for long periods of time, it's important to practice playing from this spot a lot. In fact, even though it's the area you want to spend the least amount of time in when playing, it's the area you want to spend the most amount of time in when training because it's the most difficult, and it's a huge difference maker in terms of level of play when you have this area more or less locked in your game. Getting better here will have the ripple effect of improving your entire defensive game. You'll likely be better at blocking at the net and defending from the baseline since you rely on a lot of the same skills to execute those shots as you do the transition zone reset. The goal should be to get very comfortable with it because you will be there for a good chunk of your game time, regardless of whether you want to be or not. And when you get comfortable there, a whole other level of play will open up to you and you will become a total nightmare for your opponents. You'll be better at getting up to the net more often, more balanced as you do it, and with better shots. You'll also be better at defending attacks when you get pushed off the non-volley zone line if you are already up there. The very best players understand that this area of the court is the most difficult, and they use their skill from there to their advantage. Sometimes as a weapon because it's so very frustrating for opponents if you can dig your way out of this zone successfully time and time again because they feel like they should be able to easily end the point when they have you there. That mental pressure you put on them is daunting and therefore a weapon in your game. So with that in mind, let's see what we can do to get better at dealing with shots in this area of the court. I'm Nicole Havlicek, this is Primetime Pickleball. Let's dive deeper into today's topic. Missing one of our videos is like missing an easy put-away. Don't let that be you. Subscribe now. So, you're receiving a shot in the transition zone. Your opponent is making contact, so you need to stop with your weight balanced over both feet. Drop your butt down and be ready to spring into action. You may have to move to get it or dig it out of your shoelaces. Either way, you need to be ready to deal with something likely on the more difficult side. The more offensive your opponents can be, the lower you should get. Get your feet in a wider stance, keep your back straight, and don't bend over at the waist. Have a slight knee bend. Preferably have your paddles ready position leaning a bit towards your backhand because you can defend the area from about here to here with your backhand and only about here to here with your forehand. Basically, you can defend your body with your backhand, but you can't with your forehand because you will be jammed up. You want to set your paddle depending on how aggressively you expect the next incoming shot to be. If you expect it to be quite aggressive, then get lower and get your paddle lower. If they hit it hard, it's going to come relatively low on your body because of how far back you are in the court. If it comes through high, then it's probably going out. It's best for your default here to be a lower paddle position rather than higher. If your reset drop was quite good, then it won't be as much of a concern, but again, default low rather than high because it's more likely your contact will be low because of your position in the court. When you implement the tips we're sharing in today's video, we're confident it will help your game. As helpful as these tips are, they're only part of the story when it comes to playing winning doubles pickleball. If you want to learn all the strategies you'll need to dominate the doubles court, then you'll want to check out our complete doubles system so you have a clear A to Z plan to follow. Because when you have a clear and proven plan, you can confidently and systematically win more points in games and have more fun on the court. Go to doublessystem.com today to learn all about it. Alright, let's get back to today's video. As you see the shot coming in, you want to give your mind intentional and clear instructions. To do that, you want to quickly visualize the entire shot you're about to hit. The whole trajectory of it from your paddle to the bounce on the other side. See the flight path and hit it through that flight path. Giving your mind that clear visual is key. Your mind delivers instructions to your body, so you must be clear about your commands as to what you want your body to do. If your instructions are unclear and fuzzy, then your shot will be iffy at best. Your eyes see the ball as it comes in, and your mind's eye sees what you're about to do with it. I know this may seem like a lot, but this can and will all happen very quickly as it's in mental pictures and not in words. Soon, it's actually quite easy and will become second nature and help you out a lot. If you don't know what you should be thinking about and focusing on, then now you do. See the flight path of your shot and hit it through the flight path you've imagined. Easy, right? Now you're going to nail your shot every time. Well, as we all know, that's easier said than done, and we have to train this thinking and this shot to really master it. And as we very often say here at Primetime, one of our favorite ways to drill is through the use of games. We can strain the game in such a way so as to get a lot of reps on the skill that we're working on. A great one for this is one that we call 3 digs. In this drill, one player will start in the transition zone and one player will start up at the non-volley zone line, and will use half of the court in a skinny singles format. You can do this down the line on either side or cross court on either side. And in fact, you should do it in all the possible variations. You can also do this with 4 players as a doubles point if you wish. The overall gist of this game, and I'll explain it in more detail shortly, is that the transition zone player has to dig out 3 reset shots from where they started in the transition zone. Once they've done that, they can advance to the non-volley zone line and finish the point from there. Basically, after the transition zone player has dug out 3 shots, anything goes. Any player can score a point at any time, no matter what stage of the point you're in, regardless of if the 3 digs have been hit yet or not. The game is scored in a 7-11 format. The player starting in the transition zone has to score 7 points before the player starting at the non-volley zone line scores 11 points to win the game, and vice versa. The transition zone player needs to score less points to win the game because they are starting at a disadvantage every point. To start each point, the transition zone player will feed the ball to the net player in such a way that they can take it out of the air as a volley. The player up at the non-volley zone line must hit their first 3 shots in such a way that they bounce deep in the court near the transition zone player or beyond them. No short shots for them on any of the first 3 shots. After the first 3, anything goes at that point for both players. You should play several games of this in alternate roles so that each player has a chance to play in each position. You can dial this game down or ramp it up based on the levels of the players. If the player currently serving as the transition zone player isn't yet very skilled with this shot, The non-volley zone line player can be more gentle with the first 3 shots by hitting them a bit slower and closer to the transition zone player. And as they improve, they can ramp up the difficulty of these first 3 shots. If the transition zone player is very skilled at transition zone reset shots, then you can really take it to them and press them hard by moving them aggressively or jamming them up at their feet with your very best shots. You want to make it so that they have to push themselves, and the pressure you are applying comes up against the limit of their skills. But you still want to play it in such a way that it's a makeable shot for them and they are able to complete 3 in a row at least at times, even if it's not every time. So get out there and work those transition zone resets. As mentioned previously, it's an absolutely essential skill for long-term pickleball success and if you want to advance to high levels. And it will have a positive ripple effect throughout your entire game. A big thank you to Taylor Bryant and Josh Bernstein for their help with this video. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, like, comment, and share. For more pro player pickleball tips, techniques, strategies, and more on how to take your game to the next level, please visit primetimepickleball.com. You'll find a clickable direct link in the video description below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one, and until then, happy pickling.